Earlier I spoke to the president of the Indonesia Institute in Perth, Ross Taylor. Ross Taylor, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris.
Now, you've written that the execution of these two men is the greatest test of the relationship between Australia and Indonesia since 1999 and the invasion of East Timor. Why is that?
Well, I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. I think a number of circumstances are coming together to create a perfect storm in the bilateral relationship, Chris. We have a very new, quite inexperienced and, dare I say, at times naive government in Indonesia that is only 7 months old. We have, and of course, the communication and the links between Australia and Indonesia have not yet had the chance to develop. And of course, with these executions, this just creates the environment for the bilateral relationship to be tested very severely.
Give us a sense of the domestic environment, because Joko Widodo is in fact in a very weak position, isn't he?
Yes, Chris, and I think that unquestionably this whole issue and the execution has played right into domestic politics in Indonesia. And as you would know, and many of the viewers of ABC would know, that 7 months ago, Joko Widodo, or Jokowi as he is known, came to power. And he has a much more complex situation that we faced here in the Australian Parliament, where in the National Parliament he does not have the numbers to get his legislations through. But he has another problem in that his own party, referred to the PDIP, which is headed up by former President Megawati Sukarno Putri, there's a tremendous amount of ill feeling within that party. There is still a strong feeling that, in fact, Megawati herself should have been this president of Indonesia. So he's very curtailed in what he can do, and there's been accusations within Indonesia that he is simply a puppet of the former president. So if you put all those together, Chris, this president has now really boxed himself into probably the only saving grace that he's got left now, and that is his determination to stamp out drug smuggling and to be tough on crime. So when the execution issue arose, he really has left himself with nowhere to go.
So in fact, a weak president is trying to look strong by standing up to the world and going ahead with these executions.
In a simplistic sense, Chris, yes, that is right. And for him to have backed away from that process, given the fact that probably still something like 65% of Indonesians are in favour of capital punishment, would have almost provided his political death sentence to him. And he wasn't going to do that. He couldn't do that. And we've seen the tragic consequences of that position. And
you've written as well that there's a growing sense of nationalism in Indonesia which is feeding into this.
Well, this particular government, the Jokowi government, is certainly, and we knew this before the retirement of President Yudhoyono. Most commentators said the relationship would change, and we now have a government that is quite nationalistic, that is quite inwardly focused, and I would say really lacking in skills when it comes to foreign affairs matters. And I think that, Chris, has really complicated the issue. Even during the days of the spying scandal and the boat people, our Prime Minister could still pick up the phone to Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and speak. Our Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, had a very warm relationship with Marty Netlegawa, the Foreign Minister, to whom, even during the most stressful times, that communication link could be continued. That's all gone now, and I think that's added to the complexity of this very, very difficult situation.
And do we also misunderstand to a certain extent the limits of this president's power? Because some of the things that we saw in the transfer of these prisoners, which look particularly overbearing, and the selfies that we saw with the police, that might be happening much lower down than him, that's not a directive from the president.
No, I think that's a good point, and I think people in Australia here who watch Indonesia very closely, Chris, have been, like myself, absolutely dismayed. Not so much the fact that they carried out these executions, because we all felt that that was certainly going to happen, but I think what has been very surprising is the manner in which it was conducted. And with the greatest respect to my Indonesian friends, I think the whole episode has been an absolute disgrace and shameful. And I think the disturbing aspect of this, it's really symptomatic of this young government that is really struggling to find its place and the president to find his place in leading this country. And we've got this quite a strong element of this dysfunctionality, I suppose you could call that, occurring. And so we see that whether we're talking about the implication, the introduction of beer bans to mini-marts or the death sentence or a whole range of issues, Chris. What we're seeing is this example of a government that really just is struggling to find its place, as a good, strong leadership team for Indonesia.
And yet this is a vital relationship, and of course if our relationship with Indonesia deteriorates, we have strategic competitors like China that might move into the void.
Well, Chris, if you take a walk through any of the major hotels now in Jakarta, they are just simply packed with Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Singaporean, Hong Kong business people. Very much, notwithstanding what's happened with the execution, Indonesia is a country that in the last few years, quite frankly, has been looking very much north, and there's not much looking to the south. And one would have to say that has been driven a little bit by Australia's focus on the concept that nothing else mattered in the bilateral relationship than stopping the boats. So, that's been a very good move for Australia, but there has been an opportunity cost to that, and we are seeing that played out now. So there is a lot of work to be done to rebuild our links with business and trade, and also government-to-government relations, Chris, which are vitally important for the regional security and terrorism anti-terrorism issues as well.
So finally, Ross Taylor, this is a very sensitive moment in relations, and things could go better or worse from here.
Oh, absolutely, and I think the Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister were very wise yesterday to be very measured in their comments. I don't think now is the time for widespread retribution. I think it's now time to actually work with Indonesia. They desire to be what we call a civil society as part of their emergence as a world power, and we can play a very important role in that. So I think to say that we would turn our back on our northern neighbour now would be to invite them to be even more inward looking, and I don't think that's in our interest. It's not in Indonesia's interest, and Chris, it's certainly not in the regional interest either.
Ross Taylor, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.